Hi, Sarah Mack here from withsarahmack.com. And today I wanted to share a big chunk of my story in detail about my recovery from 5 years of chronic fatigue, massive burnout, to a complete, full and total recovery of my energy and experiencing and creating so much more energetic, emotional, time and financial freedom in the process. So I'm going to share the whole thing with all the little tidbits of what helped me to take my energy, really rebuild my energy from baseline, and create so much more energy in very strategic and natural, healthy ways that have brought me so much in the process. So let's rewind back to, I think it was like 2013. And that was the beginning. I didn't really realize I was heading into a burnout. I was doing my master's in Montreal in film studies, and I was studying in the winter, and I would fly in the summer out to Vancouver in British Columbia, and I would work all summer long on film crews, driving up mountains, long days, like 18-hour days. We even did a 24-hour day once. Lots of moving furniture when I was in the art department, lots of driving around when I was in production, driving people around to and from the airports. And it was all contributing. And then after I finished my master's and I did my last season in film, I knew I physically just wasn't able to do the long hours anymore. And it really pushed me into a career change. And that was when I stepped into entrepreneurship. So, I'd already delayed a year of my master's. It took me a year longer. So I spent 3 years completing it. I was getting 6 p.m. headaches. I was having loss of focus. I went through a phase where I thought I had ADHD because I was really struggling to focus. I went on Ritalin for a bit. It gave me a massive headache and it just didn't agree with me. I had to put a full stop in all of the things that I loved and enjoyed in my life. I had to stop going out dancing. I stopped going to parties. I stopped socializing. I stopped my hobbies, extracurricular activities, and really everything ground to a halt. I didn't even have the bandwidth to talk to people. I was like, shut the door, in my room, 6 p.m., headache, staring at the wall, couldn't do anything, just pain, lots of physical pain. It was not good. And, so that was a really big push for me to change because I knew I couldn't continue at the fast pace of just intense, many, many, many long days working on film crews. And I knew that I wanted to have location independence. So I knew I wanted to have some type of an income from an online source. That's really all that I knew. So when my friends invited me out to help on their business in Bali, their online business, I was like, well, obviously that's a breadcrumb in the right direction. Put all of my stuff in storage in Vancouver, got a one-way flight out to Bali. And as with what often happens, apparently, when you go out to Bali, is you think you're going out there for one reason, turns out you're there for a completely different reason. Anyway, long story short, everything kind of fell apart with that business because of just stuff that was going on in different people's personal lives. My friend got dengue fever, she had to travel back to visit her dad, who was not well. I was at the peak of my burnout, just with the travel, the change of environment, super hot weather, and then the added stress of suddenly this job that I came out there for completely disappearing and being really broke after my master's. So that was really the peak of the low. That was the peak of the low of the lows of the lowest moment. I didn't have any money to go back to the West. I didn't have any career opportunities. I had terrible health. I could barely do anything. And so that's really what prompted me to get a flight to India, because it was cheaper. It was cheaper to be there. Accommodation was, slightly cheaper than Bali. It was like $5 a night for a hotel. So I went up to the Himalayas, the foothills of the Himalayas in Rishikesh, got a $5 a night hotel, and did a lot of meditation and sitting by the Ganga and doing a lot of research into what the hell was going on with my health while launching my entrepreneurial adventures as a copywriter and starting to put myself out there and get clients. So, initially my journey led me to nutrition. I stumbled across something online about adrenal fatigue. My friend who I was working with was a doctor. She helped me to identify that the shift in my energy patterns was symptoms of chronic fatigue. So she put me onto a few things, and I was initially drawn to, learning about the adrenals and the endocrine system and how to support the rebuilding, basically recharging of my batteries, replenishing my reserves that had been burnt out. And that initially led me to supplements. So I started taking multivitamins, probiotics, omegas, minerals. It wasn't until later when I saw a nutritionist that I started taking consistently ashwagandha and rhodiola rosea. Initially, I started taking ribose, which is kind of like a sugar, to provide more energy. And what I didn't realize at the time about herbs, I thought they were just kind of like ibuprofen when you take one and then you feel better. Not the case with herbs. You need to take them consistently for at least 2 weeks to start to see any results. And first of all, disclaimer, I'm not a nutritionist. I have no medical training. Make sure you go and speak to a licensed practitioner in nutrition to advise you on what is best for you. I saw a nutritionist who uses kinesiology, which is muscle testing, to see which supplements are actually the best fit for your body. I highly recommend that, because as soon as I started taking ashwagandha and rhodiola rosea consistently, along with like really high quality multivitamins and minerals, I saw a drastic increase in my energy. So I started to dabble, started to learn a little bit more about these things, started to learn about nutritional choices that help to maximize energy. I ended up embarking on a candida cleanse, doing lots of liver cleansing. I went sugar-free, I went gluten-free. I ate a lot of meat in the beginning, and then eventually I went vegetarian. After a couple of years of rebuilding my energy, I went caffeine-free, completely processed foods-free, and was like very, very vigilant around my food choices, which really, really, really helped. Definitely took me through some ups and downs, was definitely challenging in the beginning. I took it at my own pace. This happened over a series of years. But what I learned from going through all of these phases, and when I really focused on going through a specific change in my food, it allowed me to just educate myself about how to make more healthful choices that I could then integrate into my life at the level that, was accessible to me in any given time. So all of these nutritional adventures brought me so much information that I slowly started to incorporate. And I really do believe that it's like one small incremental difference in your choices leads to a cumulative effect that over years really does make a drastic difference in your health and vitality when you're consistent with it. So I really followed my intuition with the information that was showing up for me, things I was stumbling across online that resonated with me, trying things out for myself, and seeing the same sort of information and advice coming up over and over and over again, and really trusting that and really committing to it consistently over the long term. This is really what it took for me to completely regain my energy and my health. So when I got back from India, I went back for a visit to the UK, went to see a physiotherapist, and she was like, "You're depressed. You need to go and see a therapist," which was, I had a lot of shame around that in the beginning, because I just think there is a lot of shame around mental health. And I think that's definitely changing now. But I definitely felt like, oh, there's something wrong with me, and this is terrible. This is such terrible news. Then, I was so grateful for being connected with the hypnotherapist who I began to see, who really helped me to somatically start to release and process a lot of toxic emotion that I had been holding in my body that I just simply hadn't had the knowledge, the support, or the tools to be able to release and process. That was really massively contributing to the reduction in my energy levels. And I saw, as soon as I started to do that work, this was really the thing that made the biggest, fastest, most powerful shift for me, is in starting to release this emotion that I had been holding in my body, emotions of anger, sadness, depression, things that I hadn't. Well, depression is essentially just a suppression of emotions that I just hadn't had space or knowledge to deal with before. As soon as I started to let them out after my sessions, I immediately regained a significant amount of energy. So I knew that I was onto something. So grateful for having discovered this incredible hypnotherapist, who is one of my biggest reasons why people thank me in my life when I recommend people to. I send all of my clients and dearest friends, and I find that people get sent to me when they need her, and I'm like, oh, there's a reason we're having this conversation. You need to go and see my hypnotherapist. So it was really just childhood trauma. And it wasn't until later, years later, that I uncovered memories of rape and sexual trauma that I had experienced, but I had blocked out, leading to dissociation, which is just a trauma therapy, a trauma response. And I didn't realize that was obviously one of the big contributors to this energetic healing crisis. And our bodies really just process whenever we feel like we have the resources to be able to release and process whatever it is that's going on energetically, emotionally, physically, underneath the surface. So really starting to see the hypnotherapist was the beginning for me to start to process a lot of emotions around what had happened without even knowing that that's what had happened. So this really began the journey back into my body, whereas I'd been living very dissociated, very up in my head, very up, lots of overthinking, not that much feeling. And as I began to explore more mindfulness practices and really listening to my body, really connecting to my body in a more consistent way, it was very uncomfortable because I started to get in touch with those pockets of heavy emotions that I hadn't had the tools or resources to be able to process, and didn't really know what to do with them, and was very, very uncomfortable experiencing them. And so, overworking was just a way to distract and to numb out from going to those places that needed my attention and needed my presence. And a lot of heavy emotions started to come up. So it was really going to a Tony Robbins event that was a big turning point for me, where I started committing to a daily mindset and energy calibration routine. So really choosing to cultivate the energy states, the stories, the focus, the mindset on where I wanted to be going, on what I wanted to be embodying on a day-to-day basis, that, really helped as a powerful way to move through the discomfort of healing, of processing those more challenging emotions. And that's when I really started to consistently increase my energy month after month after month after month. And I really was just blown away by the power of having a simple daily mindset practice. And that's when I started working with a money mindset coach. Or I'd worked with a money mindset coach a couple of years ago, but I committed to a long-term one-on-one contract and really started doing the deep work, looking at stories of, doing the forgiveness work around stories from my past, of myself, of, other people in my life. And I really turned a corner, and I really started to create the results that I was consistently focused on in my health, in my energy, in my money, in my business, in my relationships. And that's when I launched my coaching business, because I was like, this has changed my life, and more people need to know about mindset work and money mindset work, and really, the potential that it holds. And I started to phase out the copywriting contracts that I'd been doing, which really gave me a lot of my brain space and creative juice back to be able to work on my own business and my own creative projects, as well as take back even more time for resting and nourishing my health and taking care of my health and my well-being. So I significantly reduced my working hours to 3 to 4 much shorter days a week. There was no longer a need for hours and hours and hours of writing on other people's copy. I started taking lots of 4-day weekends. I started resting a lot more, and I doubled my income 3 years in a row in the process. I hit my first 6-figure year, and I fully recovered my energy within 5 years of when I initially, had a lot of health conditions that started to get triggered. So the habits that I created that have allowed me to consistently increase my energy levels have meant that I'm rarely ever unable to follow through on something because I'm too tired. So I went from literally weeks of low productivity and staring at the wall, procrastinating, not being able to get things done, to now, I rarely even take naps anymore, but I can have a power nap for 20 minutes and it's enough for me to be able to continue with whatever it is I had scheduled in the day. It's very rare that I lose a day from fatigue, whereas that was very, very common for me in the past. And that's why, you know, I keep my client calls in the middle 3 days of the week, so that if I do something on the weekend, I have Monday to really rest and recalibrate and get back into the swing of things and really rebuild my energy, or just sleep if I needed to sleep. And now I just use Monday as a day for, you know, getting ahead on things and working on my top priorities before I go into client calls and running workshops and trainings for my coaching clients. So it really has been creating that space for me to regain the energy. And then as I've regained my energy, keeping those spaces and allowing myself to fill those spaces with things that are taking me to the next level in my business and money, or even I've created even more space for my creative projects, or for socializing, or for having fun, or for resting, and for just filling my life with even more nourishing and joyful things. So not having the energy in the beginning really forced me to be very strategic in the way that I was building my business and my strategies, and the ways that I was getting clients and making money, and, you know, for creating my offers and organizing my time and priorities, which has really gifted me a life of so much freedom on the other side of it, for which I'm very grateful. And so here are the key pieces that I just want to reiterate, in the hopes that, you know, if in any moments that you're feeling lower levels of energy, or you feel like you're going through a moment of big transition, and also recognizing that transitions do take up so much bandwidth. If you're launching new income streams, you're starting a business, or you're moving cities, or, you know, entering a new phase in your life, or having a kid, or anything that life brings us that requires, you know, learning, figuring things out, moving through challenges. There will always be these contributors and these things from life that are taking up our bandwidth. So doing everything within our power to be able to expand our bandwidth, to be able to maximize our energy, is how we maintain the most power to be able to move through things with as much grace and ease and fun as possible. So here are the key pieces. And just, you know, what stands out to you? What is something that you can make an incremental shift around that would just gradually start to increase your energy levels when you show up with more consistency? So number one, this is the easiest one. I mean, it's often the hardest to execute on, but it's the one that when you get good at executing this, it gives you the most gain. It gives you the most reward when it becomes a habit, is quality rest. So having a consistent bedtime, stop working with enough time to wind down, which for me is 7 or 8 o'clock at the absolute latest. Like, that's me working late now. You know, before I would work until 11, like finishing a copy contract if I was on a deadline. That never happens anymore, because I'm simply not available for it. And my goal is to finish by 6. And then have time to relax and allow my brain to turn off, allow my body to wind down, allow myself to do something fun at the end of the day. So I'm releasing the stress. So I'm not just going from like work mode straight to bed, and then having a busy mind that takes a really long time to wind down and fall asleep. So I give myself that time, because I know when I go to bed by 10 or 11, just how I feel the next day is a completely different person than if I go to bed past 11 or 12. So I don't do that anymore, unless it's like a really special occasion and it's really, really worth it. So that, you know, obviously has a knockback effect in managing my workload, so that becomes possible for me, which is really all about boundaries, which also leads into pricing and business strategy. And the most important piece, which somebody told me about, like, how do you avoid fatigue, is to rest when you're tired. Like, it's really that simple. But when you're tired, rest. Don't put it off, because the more you put it off, the more you're just adding to the debt. So we always have to pay back the debt. Our bodies need that restoration on a consistent basis. So rest when you're tired. Trust that you have the time. Trust that you have the support and the resources. Trust that the world isn't going to come crashing down if you take a 20-minute nap right now. Even if you take a whole day off, even if you take several days off in a row, trust you'll still be able to make money. You'll still be able to meet your needs. You'll still be able to function as a human being. The world will not grind to a halt if you decide to take some rest. That was a big one for me. And then some teas, which really helped me to like fast track the wind down into a deep and restful sleep, are kava. Yogi Teas has a really good kava tea, tulsi or lavender tea. And preferably if you can have a blend with like rose, blended sleepy teas are actually more impactful than teas on their own, apart from the kava. The kava definitely works. And hot salt baths, that helps me to just get out of my head and into my body, helps me to really relax. And the salt is very, very rejuvenating and cleansing as well, particularly if you're going through transformation, particularly if you're going through any kind of emotional healing processes. It's very detoxifying energetically and physically. So I am addicted to hot salt baths with lots of essential oils. Then the other really big piece is movement. Daily movement, make it a non-negotiable. It's one of those things that when I was very, very fatigued, even a walk would make me feel more fatigued. But in starting to commit to that consistently, I moved through the fatigue and started to experience higher levels of energy. And just starting with a gentle 30-minute a day walk, getting outside, nothing beats that. And that obviously contributes to better sleep as well. So, and I've gradually every day started to increase the intensity and the commitment to my daily movement practice. So I will do yoga every day because yoga is pretty much a replacement for antidepressants in the way that it's a medicine, and it opens you up energetically, it aligns you, it allows for emotional release, it allows for physical alignment, it's working with the meridians and the energy centers of your body. So it's working on so many levels, and there's a reason we feel really relaxed and good and calm and grounded. So I highly recommend that as a practice. Qigong is another great one if you are feeling super fatigued or sick and really are struggling to move. It's very, very gentle. It's standing. It's very very still. But it's like taking an energetic shower. I really recommend that. Now I exchange between yoga and the class, which is an aerobic movement practice incorporating trauma release strategies, and through using the voice, the sound R creates a release that impacts the vagus nerve, looking into the vagus nerve. Oh yeah, doing like breath work and cold showers. That's another really great way to set your endocrine systems. And the movement combined with dance, combined with meditation, and being very, very strategically guided to focus on being present, focus on being present with sensation. This is really the practice that helps us to stop disassociating, stop checking out of our body, and actually have the courage and the presence and the strength to be able to process whatever emotional sensations we are experiencing, so that we're not shoving them away. We're not shoving them in the cupboard and creating this toxic buildup. That's really a heavy burden for our bodies if we're not giving it space to process. So I highly recommend that as a practice. And then I go for a walk every day as well. So 2 different types of movement. And, there was a time where that just didn't feel possible for me. There was a time where in my schedule that didn't feel possible for me. Now it is. It's something that I've been working to. It's something that I'm, through that consistent commitment, able to make those incremental increases. And every time I do that, I increase my energy levels. The more we move, the more energy we have. It's really a very simple equation, particularly when you're, most of your work is sedentary at a laptop and at a computer. So really reducing the time spent sitting down, getting up and moving, especially out in nature as much as possible. The more you do that, the more energy you'll have. It's really actually a very, very, very simple and powerful self-care strategy. So just monitoring that. And I always go with the flow of the intensity. Even if sometimes I'm really exhausted and I really don't feel like I have the energy to exercise, I'll do a yin yoga or a restore, and just being in my body, breathing, bringing that presence, doing some stretches always, always, always brings me more energy. It's not about pushing. It's not about, giving more than I have to give. It's really about listening and honoring where I'm at, but recognizing that above all, always movement supports my body. And then obviously my daily mindset routine. So I'll do my workout, I'll do mindset, I'll do healthy breakfast with protein and something green, either some spinach or some collard greens or a green smoothie with eggs, lots and lots and lots of herbal tea throughout the day. And then creativity has been the other thing that really saved me, which is playing music. I learned to play guitar. I started singing. Some type of physical expression like singing, playing guitar, or dancing daily. I created a whole course on this, Creative Fun Club, which was a daily creative practice. This got me through it. Like, this got me out of depression. This got me out of energetic slumps. Doing this and just create the hormones that happen in your body when you create and you express purely for the purpose of enjoyment, not because you're trying to make a big, amazing project, not because you're trying to make a statement about something, not because you're trying to influence the way that people see you, just for you, just because it feels good. This has really got me through and shifted my energy, even 5-10 minutes a day, just feeding my soul and giving that to myself. And that, has eventually evolved into learning music production. I'm learning to make my own beats and produce my own music. And that's my passion project that I devote time to every week. That just is so much fun, brings me so much joy. And I'm getting back into making dance videos. Now I have the energy for that as well. Again, just for the pure fun of it. It makes me so happy and it energizes me, it elevates me. And I always make more money when I devote my time and energy to things that elevate me and that bring me joy. So then there's obviously the emotional healing and release work. That has been a combination of hypnotherapy for me with energy healing, both on myself. I trained as a Reiki practitioner when I was in India, also working regularly and consistently with different practitioners, consistently doing breathwork workshops, consistently doing EMDR. I found is a very gentle and powerful integrative treatment for trauma. Emotional freedom tapping. I highly recommend Jen Partridge, her YouTube channel. She has a ton of free videos. A really, really powerful and accessible tool for processing high sensation and challenging emotions and getting down to the root and clearing that for any PTSD symptoms. So powerful. I've recently discovered the body code release work. And for physical and chronic aches and pains and misalignments, osteopathy is using myofascial release. Is really, really, really powerful and very, very gentle too. Obviously, yoga and meditation, journaling, self-inquiry, and taking that time to consistently process and improve the skill of connecting to sensation in my body, listening to my emotional responses, learning to process them and release them. There's TRE is trauma release exercises as well, and starting to incorporate that into my practices. Always, whenever I release, I gain more energy. It happens. And so it's a consistent practice for me. And that's why I'm consistently gaining and building and accessing more and more energy, more and more clarity, more and more peace and calm as I integrate all of these practices with consistency. And then really it was coaching that got me through it all. When I was in India, I started off working with coaches who were training for certifications. And so I was doing it for free for a while until I started being able to afford to pay coaches. And I've consistently worked with coaches ever since. And I found that combination of working with a coach really has kept me staying future focused on the vision, tuned into my desires and taking action towards my goal, which is the thing that speeds up the transformation, that allows me to move through whatever it is that, I'm healing from and clearing, and allows it to be fun and exciting, and is a really motivating way to heal and to move through health challenges, just to know and be focused on what's going to be waiting on the other side when I build that potential and that capacity and that time and that commitment and consistency to be able to create the things that I really desire in my life. So it's really about consistency with these absolutely basic habits, like three meals a day, nutritional food choices, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, minimizing work hours, making the strategic career changes to allow for that, which I know is big, right? It takes a lot of commitment to make those transitions, to step out into setting up new income streams. But it's so worth it on the other side when they work. Daily movement, daily time outside, as much time as possible in nature, uplifting content and activities only. I do not watch things that make me feel anxious. I do not watch things that, are difficult or triggering. I watch things that uplift me, that are building the vision of the world that I desire to see and create. I only spend time with people who make me feel good. I have absolutely zero tolerance for things that do not make me feel good or are not aligned with where I want to be going at this point. Nutritional support, emotional support, coaching support, financial support. Obviously, all of these things require investment, and it was up to me to, get my broke ass out of the situation that I was in and take responsibility to creating those funds, or using my resourcefulness to be able to create opportunities to work with people that, I was able to access at the level of resources that I had, which was absolutely nothing at the beginning of this journey, and then building it, prioritizing my investments into the things that build me up, that expand my potential and my capacity, which has then led me to be able to earn way more money, have way more freedom, and have more bandwidth for all of the other things that I enjoy in life. And the most important thing is to be objective and to release self-judgment. I used to judge myself so hard in the process, like there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't be like this. I should be like this. And that judgment is the thing that makes it hard. When you release the self-judgment, then you just get on with your day, with the things that you have to do. You can actually I found a lot of enjoyment in my healing process and working with incredible practitioners and learning all of this cool stuff about my body and about health. All of the knowledge that I gained, all of the wisdom, all of the experiences, all of the strength that I connected to in being in those low moments and being able to move out of them and really being able to have my back to be able to move through some really, really big challenges. So releasing that self-judgment has been such a journey for me, and is so, so, so important to really just observe and intentionally shift self-sabotaging habits or patterns, taking full responsibility, one day at a time, one choice at a time. Consistent momentum is everything. All those little incremental choices, day after day after day after day, they make a difference. They do work, even if it feels slow, even if it feels like you're not seeing the results. It is making an impact, and it is making absolutely massive and huge positive shifts in your life that sometimes you don't even see until a few years down the line. And you're like, wow, look at the difference in my life now from where I was a few years ago. And obviously investing in it, the time, the focus, the energy, the money, the learning, the help and support. And this has been really key for me, which is deciding everything I try is going to be the thing that works for me. I decided that with every healer I worked with every nutritional supplement I took, with every book that I read. I decided I was going to make this work for me. I was going to take whatever it is that I could take on in that moment to implement it and to make it work for me. And this was going to be the thing that made me better. And that was my intention with every single choice that I made, every single action that I made. And I did not stop until I got where I wanted to go. So I really took that responsibility for my transformation. I made it my number one priority and just decided that everybody that came into my world that had the potential or the promise to be able to help me, that I took that and co-created with them, with anybody and every opportunity that crossed my path, I took it and I trusted my intuition and I listened and I kept moving forward. And that's really what got me where I wanted to go. So honestly, recovering from this health condition, these symptoms has been the hardest thing that I've ever done. It's brought me the biggest challenges and I've had to make the biggest sacrifices in terms of having to let go of a lot of the things that I, really loved and enjoyed in life in order to take the time to heal. But how many amazing lessons have I learned along the way, and how much amazing knowledge and tools that will really last my lifetime. And, I've gone on I took that approach after seeing the transformation I was able to create in my own health. I then applied that to my money. And now I continue to apply that in my business and my money to grow my impact, my money, and the level of freedom that I experience day to day. So whatever it is that you're moving through, keep holding the vision, keep taking action, keep listening and adjusting your path and your course. Decide that whatever it is that you're going to take action will work for you. Release judgment and just trust the process. So I'm so happy that I got the opportunity to share all of this with you. Please leave your comments. Feel free to share what's worked for you. And please support the show by leaving a review on iTunes on the Creative Magic Club listing so that this content can reach even more people. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.